For decades, whispers, rumors, and subtle shifts have reshaped the line of power inside Buckingham Palace, but nothing prepared the world for this. When the House of Lords allegedly declared Kate Middleton as Queen-in-Waiting, the entire nation held its breath. In a monarchy built on symbolism, every phrase carries weight, but this one, in particular, carried the force of a generational shift. To most, it sounded like a formality, a compliment perhaps, tossed amid ceremonial flattery. But to insiders, it wasn't just ceremonial, it was seismic, because it didn't come from the press or the palace's PR machine. It came from the Lords, an ancient institution that rarely stirs the royal waters. Suddenly, a phrase that would have once passed as pageantry took on a new shape: declaration, endorsement, power move. The implications were undeniable. After centuries of constitutional choreography, even the suggestion of naming a queen-in-waiting while the reigning king is still alive, and while a queen consort currently sits beside him, threatens to rewrite the script, especially when that queen consort is Camilla Parker Bowles, the same woman whose rise to royalty was once marred by scandal, slowly repaired by time, and finally legitimized by Charles's unwavering devotion. For Camilla, the title Queen had come at the cost of decades of scrutiny. To have that honor now eclipsed, even symbolically, by a younger woman, a more popular woman, was more than humiliating. It was destabilizing. Reports soon surfaced that Camilla broke down in tears behind palace doors. A queen consort, unraveling not from scandal or disgrace but from invisibility. And as the news spread like wildfire across global headlines, the question became unavoidable. Was this a royal misstep, a misinterpreted gesture, or the first public step in a quiet internal coup? As we dive deeper into the events behind this historic moment, we must ask, how did the monarchy get here? What has been brewing behind the palace gates? And why does this sudden shift send ripples far beyond titles and protocol? As the palace walls resonate with whispered rumors, we return to a moment nobody saw coming. It began as a whisper, a single sentence uttered inside the House of Lords during what should have been an uneventful session. But the moment those words were spoken, everything changed. One senior peer, addressing matters of ceremonial succession, referred to Catherine, Princess of Wales, not as the future queen or the wife of the heir, but as Her Majesty, the Queen-in-Waiting. The chamber fell silent. Some dismissed it as rhetorical flourish, others weren't so sure. Because in a monarchy built on precision, every syllable is weighted with consequence. And this phrase, Queen-in-Waiting, had never been used publicly in Parliament before. Not in reference to Kate, not while Queen Camilla still reigned beside King Charles. Not like this. Almost immediately, the phrase began to circulate. Clips from the Lord's live stream were downloaded, clipped, and reposted across social media platforms. TikTok videos exploded with commentary. Royal enthusiasts on YouTube ran frame-by-frame breakdowns of the moment. In one slowed-down recording, you could even catch a few heads turning in the chamber, eyes narrowing. It was as if the word itself had struck a nerve, raw, exposed, and unresolved. But then came the questions. Was it an accident, a rogue opinion, or a deliberate statement meant to signal something deeper? The official transcript of the House of Lords did indeed contain the term, and though the peer who said it offered no clarification, other lords did not object or strike it from the record. In fact, within hours, that moment had become a headline. House of Lords names Kate as Queen-in-Waiting. One tabloid screamed. Another, more measured outlet phrased it carefully. Historic reference sparks royal debate. But what gave the incident true weight were the murmurs of confirmation leaking from behind closed doors. Sources claimed this wasn't a spontaneous comment. It was tested language, rehearsed phrasing, greenlit by select senior figures within the peerage. Some even alleged that the phrase had been pre-approved by a quiet group of monarchist reformers eager to prepare the public for a symbolic shift in power. What made this more unsettling was the silence that followed. No denial from the palace, no statement from the king, not even a murmur from Clarence House. And in the vacuum, speculation took root. Was this parliament subtly bypassing the monarchy's own control over narrative? Or worse, was it a trial balloon? A way to gauge public reaction before a formal announcement? But why now? That's the question that had royal watchers spinning. King Charles, though ill, remains firmly in place. Camilla, though less visible, has never stepped back from duty. Yet here was a phrase that seemingly skipped a generation and a consort, leaping from tradition straight into the arms of a younger royal who already commands near-universal public support. Was this the opening salvo in a palace realignment? A factional power play designed to elevate Kate before circumstances force a hand? The implications were profound. If Parliament were to ever formally recognize a queen-in-waiting outside the reigning sovereign's directive, it would not just shift a title, it would challenge the very foundation of royal authority. It would signal that the future of the monarchy isn't just shaped by bloodlines and protocol but by public favor and parliamentary influence. With this purported declaration shaking tradition to its core, we must rewind the clock. Camilla's path to the throne was never paved in gold. It was carved in whispers, scars, and battles fought in the shadows of palace corridors and tabloid front pages. Before she was queen consort, before she was even accepted by the public, Camilla Parker Bowles was painted as the villain in one of the most explosive love triangles the British monarchy had ever endured. But where others broke beneath the weight of public scorn, she endured, quietly, relentlessly. And when Queen Elizabeth II publicly endorsed her in 2022, just months before her passing, it was more than a nod of approval. It was a royal absolution. Camilla, once branded as the outsider, was now queen consort in waiting. When the coronation arrived in 2023, it wasn't without controversy. Some questioned whether the ceremony should include her crowning at all. Others argued that her title should remain Princess Consort, a term previously suggested to calm public outrage in the aftermath of Princess Diana's death. Yet Charles made his position clear: Camilla would be crowned beside him. No caveats, no compromise. And so, the crown was placed on her head, as millions watched, some in reverence, others in silent protest. Even as the title debate simmered under the surface, Camilla pressed on. Slowly, methodically, she reshaped her public image, not with grand gestures, but with persistence. She aligned herself with causes that mattered deeply to her: domestic violence, awareness, osteoporosis research, and children's literacy. These weren't photo ops. They were commitments she followed through on, year after year. And in time, the British people, though never forgetting the past, began to see the woman behind the controversy. Not a replacement for Diana, but a figure standing in her own right. But there was always a quiet tension behind palace walls. No matter how dignified her role, Camilla never escaped comparison. Diana's ghost lingered in public memory, casting a long shadow across Camilla's every move. And now, standing on the opposite side of that shadow, rose Kate Middleton, youthful, adored, and seen by many as Diana's true successor. The public embraced Kate with an enthusiasm Camilla never experienced, no matter how hard she worked. In portraits, ceremonies, and global tours, Kate drew headlines for her poise, fashion, and grace. Camilla, by contrast, remained dutiful, yet distant, respected but rarely revered. Still, she carried out ceremonial duties with unmatched discipline. In 2023, Camilla made history as the first female royal to assume certain chivalric orders once reserved for male monarchs. She stood beside Charles through diplomatic visits and state functions, becoming a cornerstone of his reign's public image. And yet, inside palace circles, murmurs began to surface suggesting she was being edged out, slowly, subtly, by a younger narrative the monarchy could no longer ignore. But perhaps the most striking part of Camilla's journey was her emotional resilience. Few public figures have weathered such sustained judgment, and fewer still have emerged standing. She didn't rewrite her past, she simply refused to be defined by it. Through decades of heartbreak, loss, and scrutiny, Camilla never fought for attention. She fought for survival. And for a time, it seemed she had won. And now, across the aisle, emerges a new rival, shaped both by tradition and modern favor. Kate Middleton's ascent wasn't born of drama, but of discipline. From the moment she stepped into the royal spotlight as William's girlfriend at St. Andrews, the public took notice. But it wasn't instant adoration. She was scrutinized, mocked for being too common, labeled by tabloids as weighty Katie, and dismissed by palace insiders as someone who might buckle under pressure. Yet quietly, steadily, and without ever demanding attention, Kate built something far more powerful than popularity. She built trust. And when she married Prince William in 2011, the world didn't just witness a royal wedding, it saw the forging of a future monarch's partner, one who would redefine the very essence of modern royalty. As Duchess of Cambridge, Kate walked a careful line. She didn't push the envelope. She didn't command headlines with controversy. But what she mastered was presence. Always poised, always smiling, always immaculate. Her image became a fortress, one that no scandal could pierce. Every outfit analyzed, every appearance viral, every moment curated into a symbol of elegance and restraint. She became a modern icon not by being loud, but by being unshakably composed. The public saw her as the embodiment of stability. The press labeled her queen material, and social media turned her into an eternal trend. But Kate's rise wasn't cosmetic. Behind the curated photographs and official portraits was a woman meticulously building a platform. She took on causes that touched the fabric of British society: mental health, early childhood development, education, addiction recovery. And unlike the shallow ribbon cuttings of yesteryear, Kate immersed herself in these worlds. She listened, she learned, she worked. Over time, her initiatives weren't seen as symbolic. They were substantial. Slowly, but undeniably, Kate transformed from William's wife into a royal force in her own right, one who could sit beside heads of state, charm foreign dignitaries, and still kneel beside children in a nursery school with the same grace. What made this transformation even more remarkable was that it unfolded not through crisis or tragedy, but through consistency. And in the background of all this evolution stood Camilla, older, more experienced, yet unable to command the same universal affection. For many, Camilla's past was always present. Diana's memory hung heavy, casting a long shadow that Camilla could never fully escape. But Kate wasn't battling ghosts. She was creating a legacy untouched by scandal, untouched by history, and in the eyes of millions, untouched by error. With William's position as heir cemented, Kate's future as queen was always technically inevitable. But now, with ailing King Charles and a monarchy desperate to modernize, inevitability has accelerated into urgency. Suddenly, the public isn't waiting for Charles to pass the crown. They're asking why it hasn't already been passed to William and Kate. Royal biographers began whispering it. Social commentators shouted it. And now, even members of parliament appear to be embracing it. Kate has become more than a beloved royal. She's the embodiment of what the monarchy wants to become: modern, dignified, and untainted. And yet, this meteoric rise, so clean, so effortless on the surface, casts a long and dangerous shadow behind her. Because no matter how graceful the climb, every ascension leaves someone else behind. But any perceived leap by Kate doesn't stand without legal or constitutional grounding. In the grand theater of British monarchy, perception can be louder than truth. But when it comes to actual power, especially the power to declare a future queen, the reality is far more precise and far less romantic. The monarchy is not governed by royal whim or dramatic declarations inside the gilded walls of the House of Lords. It is shaped, sustained, and limited by a constitutional framework that few understand, and even fewer dare to challenge. So while the words "Queen in Waiting" may have echoed from a peer's lips, their weight in law is little more than ceremonial dust. The true architecture of royal succession lies not with the Lords, but with Parliament itself. Through carefully structured statutes backed by the Crown, advised by the Privy Council, and codified in law, the transfer of power in the United Kingdom is not a matter of tradition alone, but of legislation. One of the most critical legal shifts came in 2011 with the Perth Agreement. It ended the system of male preference primogeniture, allowing daughters and sons equal rights in succession. It was a progressive leap, yes, but it also reinforced a simple truth. Only coordinated parliamentary acts across the Commonwealth realms can reshape the monarchy. Not symbolic gestures, not poetic phrases, and certainly not peerage commentary, no matter how dramatic. Titles themselves are not floating entities. They're grounded in the sovereign's authority, with the advice of ministers and the formal documentation of the Privy Seal. A consort's status is not determined by applause or approval, but by royal letters, patent, and historical precedent. Queen Elizabeth II herself was declared queen regnant through a strict legal process, not through admiration or expectation. The same applies to Queen Camilla's role, which despite fierce debate, was sanctioned and formalized under Charles's rule, and reinforced by Elizabeth's personal wish. If that were to change, it wouldn't begin with a few words in the Lords. It would require a royal proclamation and statutory revisions. That's why the notion that the House of Lords could single-handedly name Kate Queen in Waiting collapses under constitutional scrutiny. The lords hold influence. They may advise. They may sway public discourse, but they do not decide. Their power is consultative, not authoritative. Symbolic, not sovereign. No peer has ever crowned or dethroned a monarch, and no motion, whether whispered or spoken boldly, can alter the official line of succession without going through layers of legal gates and royal signatures. What then does this declaration truly mean? It is a signal, not a sentence. A cultural pulse, a reflection of where the public mind and possibly political sentiment is shifting. It's not law, but it is telling. Because in a system where symbolism drives influence, even a non-binding remark can ignite seismic change. And while Kate may not yet hold the crown, the very fact that the lords uttered her name in that light reveals more than protocol ever could. Despite the myth of power, emotions run deep, especially behind palace walls. The headlines came fast. Camilla breaks down. Palace in crisis, tears behind the crown. But behind those words was something far more raw, far more human than tabloid frenzy could capture. The phrase, "Queen in waiting," uttered so casually by the House of Lords, had struck a nerve, and for Camilla, it wasn't just a title being challenged, it was her identity, her place, her worth. Some close to the royal household whispered that she wept behind closed doors. Others claimed she simply went silent. But whether tears truly fell or not, one thing was clear. This was not the reaction of a queen angry over a title. It was the collapse of decades of restraint. Camilla has weathered storms before. Brutal headlines, vicious commentary, Diana's ghost woven into every mention of her name. The public had not been kind when she re-entered the spotlight alongside Charles. She was called a homewrecker, a usurper, a reminder of everything the fairy tale had lost. And yet, she didn't lash out. She didn't run. She simply stayed and waited. Over time, she earned a brittle kind of acceptance. Not warmth, but tolerance. Not reverence, but respect. But now, after years of holding that delicate ground, she was watching it slip through her fingers. And not because of the scandal, not because of failure, but because someone younger, cleaner, more beloved had been declared the future while she still reigned. Sources close to Camilla have denied any emotional outburst. Palace aides called the reports overblown, insisting the queen consort remains focused and composed. Official statements described her as deeply committed to her duties, brushing aside talk of turmoil. But behind those rehearsed lines was a woman who had fought hard for a seat she was now being gently nudged away from. Her silence didn't feel like strength. It felt like surrender. And perhaps, in her silence, we saw the truth. There is a pain in being tolerated, but never fully embraced. Camilla has carried that burden from the beginning. Every smile beside Charles, every wave from the palace balcony, came with the knowledge that she was never the people's choice. Diana's memory lingered like a crown she could never wear. And now, Kate, graceful, adored, unblemished, was being anointed with that crown not just by bloodline, but by public will. If Camilla truly broke down, it wasn't a weakness. It was the culmination. A lifetime of holding back, of playing the long game, of standing in the shadows of love, memory, and myth. Perhaps this was her moment of reckoning. Would she retreat quietly, choosing dignity over battle? Or would she rise one final time not to fight for a title, but to claim the legacy she believes she's earned? Public response was a storm in itself. Some rallied to her side, calling her a survivor. Others mocked her, seeing tears as proof she never belonged. And then came the conspiracy theories. Was this all staged? A calculated move to reset the narrative? Or worse, was it engineered from inside the palace itself? A power shift designed to force her out. Whatever the truth, Camilla now stood at a crossroads, not of politics, but emotion. A queen not undone by law, but by legacy. And in the silence that followed, the world saw not just the unraveling of power, but the unraveling of a person. Next, we step through the chaotic court of public opinion. The moment the phrase, "Queen in waiting," echoed from the House of Lords, the public exploded. Within minutes, hashtags like #KateQueen, #Camilla Tears, and #Royal Power Shift began trending worldwide. TikTok was flooded with reaction videos, some celebratory, some speculative, and many brutally emotional. Clips of Camilla, looking downcast at a recent engagement, were spliced with dramatic music, garnering millions of views. Meanwhile, AI-generated images of Kate in a golden crown circulated as if prophecy had already been fulfilled. The digital world wasn't waiting for confirmation, it was writing the next chapter in real time. Mainstream media was caught in a frenzy of contradiction. Tabloids leaned hard into the drama. "Camilla weeps in private chambers," screamed one headline, while another declared, "Kate's crown confirmed?" Without hesitation, they built a narrative of betrayal, ambition, and heartbreak, turning whispers into declarations and quiet gestures into royal declarations. But the broadsheets were more cautious. The Times, The Guardian, even the BBC approached the situation with surgical restraint, questioning the accuracy of the reports and citing unnamed palace sources dismissing the story as misinterpreted enthusiasm. Yet, even their measured tone couldn't smother the wildfire burning across public discourse. Then came the influencers, an unfiltered, unchecked media machine of their own. Royal watchers on YouTube produced hour-long breakdowns, dissecting every word spoken in Parliament, cross-referencing gestures, timelines, and facial expressions. One creator claimed to have insider information that Kate and William were being quietly groomed to assume full duties within the year. Others speculated that the Queen Consort's absence from certain events was proof of her emotional unraveling. Conspiracies ran rampant, claiming a secret succession plan was already in motion, orchestrated by senior aides loyal to William. Polls followed the noise. A survey conducted just days after the House of Lords' comment revealed a dramatic swing in public favor. Over 63% of respondents said they would support Kate becoming queen sooner than expected. Camilla, by contrast, saw her approval dip below 40% for the first time since her coronation. More shocking was the international response. In Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, nations with strong Republican sentiment, press outlets echoed the UK coverage with a curious tone, one that signaled change wasn't just possible, but desirable. Kate, the modern monarch, was being positioned as the perfect bridge between legacy and progress. But even as public support for Kate soared, darker narratives began to surface. Some believed the entire episode was orchestrated by palace insiders, leveraging media sentiment to apply pressure on King Charles. Others believed Charles himself had quietly blessed the idea to secure the future of the monarchy under public approval. And then there were those who insisted it was all too convenient, too perfectly timed to be organic. Theories swirled that Camilla's emotional moment was staged, a strategic sacrifice to rally sympathy before stepping down gracefully. What the world was witnessing was no longer a private royal issue. It was a public referendum on the monarchy's future. Every post, every video, every article added a new layer to the storm. It wasn't just about who held the crown. It was about who the people wanted to hold it. And in this arena, image wasn't just influence, it was everything. But behind this media maelstrom lies a palace machine that never sleeps. Beneath the grandeur of Buckingham Palace and the marble calm of Clarence House lies something far more turbulent, an ecosystem of influence, silence, and strategy. The royal family is not just a family, it's a power structure. And when the House of Lords publicly acknowledged Kate as queen-in-waiting, that structure didn't just flinch, it recalibrated. Because behind every title, every gesture, and every public appearance, there's a machine at work. A labyrinth of private secretaries, senior aides, legacy courtiers, and modern media consultants, all waging an invisible war for perception and precedence. At the heart of this palace, chessboard, are two distinct centers of gravity. Clarence House, still the base for Charles and Camilla, operates with a traditionalist pulse, structured, controlled, and fiercely protective. Buckingham Palace, now more symbolic than operational, plays host to ceremonial pageantry, but also serves as a buffer, often absorbing public scrutiny for the sake of the crown. And then there's Kensington Palace, the stronghold of William and Kate. Leaner, younger, more digitally fluent. And if whispers from inside the royal press offices are true, more ambitious. Some insiders have started to murmur about a Kate faction, not in the sense of rebellion, but in the sense of influence. Over the past year, Kate's team has grown more assertive, coordinating everything from strategically timed charity initiatives to headline-grabbing solo appearances that often eclipse other royals. Carefully released photographs, intimate videos of her family, and her increasing number of keynote addresses have not happened by accident. Every appearance is planned, every narrative is sharpened. And behind it all is a communication strategy that seems designed not just to support the monarchy, but to center Kate within it. Camilla, by contrast, has leaned on a different set of alliances. Longtime royal advisors tied to the Queen's former staff remain loyal to her. Her charitable affiliations, particularly in domestic abuse and literacy, have built her a quieter, more dignified base. And the old orders, the garter, the thistle, the more ceremonial roles she's adopted, have helped position her within the ancient guard. But even so, her media footprint remains reserved, measured, in some cases, absent entirely. And that absence, in today's climate of perpetual exposure, feels increasingly like vulnerability. Meanwhile, palace maneuvering continues with surgical precision. Royal calendars are being reshaped. Kate is being sent on tours once reserved for senior monarchs. Her face appears on more international front pages than any other royal, save perhaps William. Behind the scenes, publications once lukewarm toward her are receiving exclusive access. Leaks about her vision for the monarchy, her modernization plan, her focus on children and mental health, appear regularly, always at moments of heightened scrutiny or tension. But Camilla's camp hasn't gone quiet. In recent weeks, select stories have surfaced in loyalist media outlets, emphasizing her resilience, her unwavering support of the king, and her emotional toll amidst public pressure. Some claim these stories are spontaneous. Others suspect they're part of a subtle counteroffensive, an effort to reclaim space in a narrative slipping from her hands. Then there are the spin cycles, where the real game is played. A well-placed leak, a vague quote, an unsourced headline, all can tilt public opinion and shift palace momentum. Courtiers deny it. The palace never comments on internal matters, but anyone who's studied the Windsors knows better. The family doesn't fight in the open. It maneuvers through silence, through symbolism, and through suggestion. So where does this leave us now? In the eye of a royal storm that hasn't yet broken. With King Charles' health increasingly shielded from public view, and the Queen Consort's roles suddenly uncertain, the monarchy appears to be shifting behind its own curtains. Whether this is a coordinated transition, a public trial balloon, or an actual internal divide, remains cloaked in carefully crafted ambiguity. But there's no mistaking the undercurrent. The balance is tilting. Whether by design or inevitability, the palace is realigning its face to the world. And that face, increasingly, belongs to Catherine. From covert power games to what this means for Britain and the world. At this moment in time, no law has been changed. No throne has been abdicated. No official proclamation has shifted the crown from one head to another. And yet, the monarchy finds itself in a state of undeniable suspense. The House of Lords' utterance may have carried no constitutional weight, but its cultural force has been staggering. A single phrase, "Queen in Waiting," has triggered a media tempest, rattled palace corridors, and exposed the fragile scaffolding that holds the House of Windsor together. Officially, everything remains as it was. Unofficially, everything has changed. Camilla, now caught in the eye of this storm, faces a critical choice. Retreat, and she cements the public narrative that she is being replaced. Step forward, and she risks being seen as grasping for relevance. But the Queen Consort has not come this far to fade quietly. Early signs suggest a pivot. More frequent appearances, subtle shifts in tone during speeches, new initiatives being scheduled that emphasize legacy, service, and resilience. It is a public relations campaign, yes, but it is also personal. For Camilla, this is not just about maintaining a title, it is about defending the life she fought to build, the life she was told she could never have. Kate, in contrast, has said nothing. She hasn't needed to. Her silence speaks volumes. While headlines swirl and voices clash, she remains poised, appearing at charity events, engaging with families, smiling for the cameras, yet never addressing the storm. And that composure has only fueled the narrative further. To many, she represents the monarchy's inevitable future. Not because she demanded it, but because she embodied it without trying. And in today's age, where perception often outruns truth, Kate's quiet dignity has become her most powerful weapon. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.